Hello and welcome to the special Easter edition of the Vet Podcast. I'm veterinarian Dr. Brian Greger from New Zealand. For us here in New Zealand, apart from the obvious religious significance of the festival, there are two icons that you cannot escape: chocolate Easter eggs and raisin-filled hot cross buns. Unfortunately, both chocolate and grapes are potentially toxic to dogs, so without pouring cold water on your festivities, what is all of the fuss about?
Are you a veterinarian dreaming about working down under in New Zealand? If so, I'd love to help you make that dream come true. Hi, I'm Julie South of VetStaff. VetStaff is New Zealand's only recruitment agency specialising in the Kiwi veterinary sector. We can help you find your dream job down under, from short-term locum assignments through to permanent employment and residency. Because we know God's own Aotearoa New Zealand like the back of our hands, we can match your career aspirations with a clinic that'll suit you best, whether you're planning to work here for a few months or forever. If it's got anything to do with working in a vet clinic in New Zealand, we can help. vetstaff.co.nz.
You are listening to the Vet Podcast, presented by veterinarian Dr. Brian Greger from New Zealand. Join us as we discuss pet health issues from around the world.
One of the reasons that I hate being on the after hours roster during Easter, apart from the fact that I just hate being on the after hours roster, is we get so many calls that go along the "my dog has eaten my Easter eggs" path. Apart from being gut-wrenching to chocoholics, there are some serious health issues with chocolate ingestion for dogs. The active ingredient in chocolate is called theobromine, which is in the same family as caffeine, and we all know what it is like to drink too much coffee. The toxin causes central nervous stimulation, heart muscle stimulation, and increased urination, among other effects. Most clinical signs are seen within 2 to 4 hours of chocolate ingestion and usually include restlessness, anxiety, and hyperexcitability. This sounds all very familiar to some of us that spend too much time drinking coffee. In addition, depending on the amount of chocolate eaten, some of the following symptoms may be seen. There may be, for example, vomiting, diarrhea, muscle tremors, and muscle weakness. Sometimes we will see blood in the urine and dehydration. Cardiac arrhythmias, that's the heartbeat beating strangely. Central nervous system hyperactivity, that is an increased activity, or conversely, sometimes there may be depression. Now, in the severe overdoses, we are looking at seizures, coma, and death. Okay, how much is too much chocolate? Now, this all depends on the type of chocolate fed. As a rule of thumb, the darker the chocolate, the nastier it is. Just a wee note here before we get into some of these figures. These figures are the amount required to cause serious illness or death. Just remember, the amounts required just to make your pet sick are very much lower. Okay, so let's just start with good old milk chocolate. How much milk chocolate is too much? Well, perhaps have a look at a 20 kilo dog first. So the amount of milk chocolate to cause serious illness or death to a 20 kilo dog is something between 1,120 and 2,240 grams of chocolate. Now, that's between 1 and 2 kilos. For those of you who are using imperial measurements, 500 grams is about a pound. We're looking at 1 kilogram is 2 pounds. Okay? Now, if we keep moving up, so remember we've got between 1 and maybe 2.25 kilos of straight milk chocolate for a 20 kilo dog. Dark chocolate, 400 to 800 grams. So that's about a pound. Now, let's have a look at the cooking chocolate. 140 to 280 grams. That's not very much for a 20 kilo dog. So we'll have a look at, perhaps a 5 kilo dog. Milk chocolate, 280 to 560 grams. That's between a half a pound and a pound. Dark chocolate, 100 to 200 grams. Wait for this. Cooking chocolate, 35 to 70 grams. It's even worse for cats. Milk chocolate, 180 to 350 grams. dark chocolate 60 to 120 grams. Now, cooking chocolate 20 to 40 grams. That is very, very little. You have a look at the size of your chocolate bar and just see how much 20 grams of that is. So, okay, you know that your dog has eaten the chocolate. What do you do? The first thing is not to panic. As mentioned earlier, most clinical signs are seen within 2 to 4 hours of eating. It's not immediate. The dog isn't going to immediately get sick, so you have to get the dog to your veterinary clinic as soon as possible. But it's not going to die on the spot when it eats the chocolate. So get it to your vet absolutely as soon as possible. Do the vet a favour, give them a ring and tell them that you're coming. Once the dog arrives at the clinic, your veterinarian will induce emesis. That is, we will make the dog vomit. And from then on, we will actually monitor any symptoms and we will treat the symptoms accordingly. Easter time is also autumn in our part of the world, and as any of you who have tried our great New Zealand wines will attest to, grapes grow well here, and in a cynical attempt to attract the attention of the New Zealand wine marketing people, if you haven't tried a New Zealand wine, go on, you won't regret it. Although New Zealand is famous for our Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir, it actually doesn't stop there. My personal favourite is a Pinot Gris, or perhaps a dry Riesling. That went sideways in a hurry. Sorry, back to what I was talking about. Easter is also grape time, as well as raisins and sultanas in that seasonal delight of hot cross buns. So, what's this got to do with your dog, you ask? Grapes are toxic too, or perhaps should I say, may be toxic to your dog. I will be truthful. After nearly 30 years of practicing as a veterinarian, I had never seen a case of grape poisoning in a dog. And although I followed the accepted line of preaching avoidance of grapes, I had this niggle in the back of my mind as to whether it was even a thing, until I had 2 dogs within 3 weeks, both with known access to grapes, both with signs attributed to grape toxicity, and unfortunately both soon after dead. Yes, grape poisoning is a thing. Here is the big puzzle though. Although there are a number of theories as to the cause of the actual mechanism, it hasn't been definitively established, although a couple of recent studies suggest that tartaric acid in grapes may be the culprit. There are a few known facts about the poisonings. It only affects some dogs. The severity of the toxicity varies between dogs. It doesn't appear to be dose-related. The part of the grape fed doesn't seem to make too much of a difference. Seeds, seedless grapes, and even grape juice have all been associated with poisoning. The most usual symptoms observed are related to acute renal or kidney failure, which include increased drinking and urination, vomiting, loss of appetite, and weight loss. The scary statistic, though, is that only about half of the affected dogs will survive. The tartaric acid theory is interesting and, at least on the surface, gives a reason for some of these observations. The amount of tartaric acid in grapes can vary by their type, how they are grown, where they are grown, how ripe they are, so the variability in the effect on specific dogs may not relate actually to the dog, but in fact to the amount of tartaric acid in the grape, or juice, or raisins in the hot cross bun. Whatever the cause, please don't feed your dog grapes, sultanas, or hot cross buns. And if your dog does eat grapes, please contact your vet straight away. For those of you celebrating Easter, have a nice time with your family and friends. And for everybody, please be aware of the risks of both chocolate and grapes in your dogs. And that's it for another episode of the Vet Podcast. All of our links are in one place at beacons.ai/vetpodcast. That is beacons.ai/vetpodcast. And while you're there, don't forget to buy us a coffee. On behalf of me, Brian Gregor, and everybody else involved in the making of this podcast, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you again soon.